So today will just be me reviewing this movie. Calan did not watch this with me. I first heard about this movie. Unfortunately, I saw the ending of this movie first. It was some GIF or YouTube short or something. I don't remember. But if you've seen this before, you know what I'm talking about. You know that ending scene. And it really intrigued me. I wanted to know what it was about. I never heard of it before. And let me tell you, the whole time I was just waiting for that ending scene. The rest of the movie did not hold up to me. I didn't really enjoy it that much. First of all, I'll just say that this is a Sam Raimi film. Most well known for The Evil Dead. And this just gives off so much of his style. The way it's shot, the way the monsters appear real cartoony, and the way people act. It's like a live action cartoon almost. Like a toned down version of The Mask almost. The style alone, I'm not a huge fan of. I will say right now, and this is going to make a lot of people mad. I know this is a super unpopular opinion. I don't love Evil Dead. I watched it recently, and I think I get it. It just wasn't for me. So obviously this movie wasn't really my style to begin with. But it also had to do with the fact that a lot of CGI in this one. And most of the horror, because this is a horror film, just comes from these really, really cheap CGI jump scares. I'm talking even some 2D images flashing on screen, and then a loud, unrelated sound plays. It just felt so cheap, and you can feel it building up to one, to the point where you can count down on your fingers when the jump scare will happen. And that was just not a good element of the film. Even when the CGI wasn't being used for jump scares, other times it was used for things like old ladies throwing up in the main character's mouth, and an old lady's eyeballs popping out of her head and going into the character's mouth, and bugs shooting out of an old lady's head and into the main character's mouth. I think you get my point. It was just a lot of really weird, gross out stuff that didn't really make me scared. It was just really, dude? You had to put that in there? You had to show the main character spewing blood out of her nose into her boss's mouth? But anyways, yeah, it's a product of its time. 2009, that's prime shit CGI era. So I can't say for sure how it looked when it first came out. Maybe it looked amazing. Even the end scene, now that I rewatched it, it doesn't look great. But it's certainly, you're not really paying attention to it as much because of the emotional impact of the scene on its own. Throughout the rest of the film, when it's just you're supposed to be getting scared by it or not much else is happening, it's more noticeable. So besides how it looks, how is the story itself? I would say it's pretty weak. It's very cheesy and cliche. And again, I'm pretty sure that's Sam Raimi's signature style. You're not supposed to take anything too seriously. It's almost parodying other horror films because it's literally the old lady comes in and our main character declines her an extension on her home, so the bank is gonna repossess it, and so the old lady puts a curse on her, and this demon is now gonna drag her to hell in 3 days. And that is so cliche. You've seen it 1,000 times before. The old lady even has the one eye that's all wonky, and she's a gypsy. She has to go meet up with the psychic, and then they have to perform this ritual where they literally have the seance circle in the dark room, and they summon the demon. So all that was cliche. I get that's what they were going for. But at some point when the whole movie does that, it's less of poking fun at it. It just kind of used all those cliches without really turning it on its head until maybe the ending. And I keep referencing the ending. Should I just talk about it now? Because that held up the entire film for me. That is what will stick with you. Let's just get it out of the way so I can kind of explain myself more, because I'm going to shit all over the rest of the movie, kind of. So essentially, the huge twist at the end is our main character has been trying to get rid of this cursed button. The old lady cursed a button. And to remove the curse, she has to gift the button to someone else. And so she ends up gifting the button back to the old lady, her corpse more specifically. And so she's like, oh, the curse is gone, everything's fixed. And so she goes to meet her boyfriend the next day. She, like, the whole mood has shifted. She knows she's in the clear. But then all of a sudden the boyfriend, who's also about to propose to her, by the way, he has a ring hidden in his pocket that's shown a little earlier, pulls out the button in an envelope and hands it to her. And it turns out that earlier in the film, she switched the envelopes, basically, that the button was being held in. And I predicted that, by the way. As soon as the scene where the envelope swap happens, I was like, okay, that's the wrong envelope. So all of a sudden, she's like, oh shit, the curse is still going. And she backs up onto this railroad track. And as she's about to get hit by this train, she gets dragged into hell by the demon. And all you're left staring at is the boyfriend's, like, freaked out face. I don't know if they enhanced it with CGI or something, but it looked like pure terror. And that was the end. So think about that. That's an amazing, like, idea, concept. Someone has a cursed item. She gets rid of it. And after you think everything's fine, turns out she never really gave it away. It gets given back to her. She gets dragged to hell. Really depressing ending, but it sticks with you. But that's the problem. There is a whole another hour, 30 minutes of the movie that really didn't have much. I mean, yes, it has to build up to that somehow, and it does. But there's all the other scenes, too, with her meeting her boyfriend's parents who are disapproving of her, and them summoning the demon only for it to be unsuccessful. It's just like all these fruitless attempts at removing the curse, only for it all to be undone at the very end. And it just wasn't that interesting. I'll just be honest. It almost feels like this whole concept could have been shortened into a little mini film, and it kind of has been by the internet, because like I've said, I've already seen this ending on wherever it's being shared. And on its own, it was super impactful. Me and Calan have talked about The Game before on this channel. It was a movie with amazing movie. Up until the very end, it kind of dropped the ball. This one turned that idea on its head. It was like boring, amazing ending. And honestly, if I wasn't anticipating that final scene the entire time, I don't know if I could have made it through it. And there's also this fail to build the relationship between our protagonist and her boyfriend. He's in the movie, maybe 5 times, or just makes these little appearances where he checks in on her. He keeps helping her through this journey because she's basically losing her mind. And he's starting to notice that. The ending kind of relies on you feeling for him, or you want to believe that they're a couple because he's going to propose to her, right? And then he's going to lose her. She's going to get dragged to hell, and there's nothing he can do about it. But the relationship felt weak the whole time to me. It wasn't too believable, just due to like how little on-screen time he had. I mean, I guess she went to like meet his parents, but they like rejected her, and they said like find someone else. And honestly, at this point, even the audience, or me, is saying like, yeah, find someone else. This girl's crazy. But he sticks with her and then proposes to her at the end after these. She's like losing her mind. She throws a glass and is talking to herself at your parents' house. And he decides it's a good idea to propose. And this dude's a psychologist. So how is he falling for this? And I'm not going to take any credit away from the movie for poor logic. Because, like I said, that's Sam Raimi's style. You're just supposed to have fun with it. And unfortunately, the only time I had fun with it was the ending. But just as an aside, I just found it funny from the very beginning that this was all caused by an old lady requesting an extension on her home. And she has to tell her no, because they've already granted her 2 extensions. And I don't know if she's failing to pay. I don't quite remember the exact dialogue. It was kind of a throwaway line. But I ended up hating this old lady. Yeah, don't grant her an extension. She's failing to pay. She's being a bitch about it. She's gets on her knees. She's like, I've never begged in my life. Please just give me another freebie. Like, no. Why would I? Our main character is doing her job, and this old lady curses her and drags her to hell because of it. It's like, fuck this old lady. It just felt kind of hopeless. Like, this poor girl was just doing her job, and everyone else, too, in this movie is a huge piece of shit. Her boss, her coworker, her boyfriend's parents. Everyone's just so mean to this poor girl. It just feels like she didn't deserve any of it. If that was intentional, it invoked some emotion out of me. Like, this world just felt hopeless for our protagonist. Like, what can she do? She just keeps getting screwed over needlessly by everyone. Then one last thing. Why did they have to sacrifice a kitten? That was a completely unnecessary and cheap jab at the heart. She has this kitten. It's real cute. It's introduced only to get fucking sacrificed. She stabs it with a knife, blood's shooting out of it, and then she buries it in the backyard. Why did they need to do that? I know there was a point in the movie briefly, but it ended up because she was supposed to sacrifice it to appease the demon, and it didn't work. And I know it's kind of like, no, man up, it's a kitten, dude. It didn't really die. But it's like on all these horror movies, you know, when you see the dog, and you're like, oh, that dog is going to get fucking strangled. I guess it's just another cliche. I'm sure it was intentional. Maybe it was even ironic. Like, oh, look at the cutest little kitten, and it's going to die. You know it's going to die. So maybe I'm playing right into Raimi's hands. This is what he wanted. I think you guys know, like, my general thoughts. I'm really excited to look at the Rotten Tomatoes. I'm guessing everyone's the complete opposite of me. I'm guessing everyone loved this film. But I think I would give it a 6 out of 10. I would say it's above average. Without that ending, though, man, I might have to give it like a below average, like a 4 out of 10. The concept as a whole just isn't exciting or new or interesting enough to warrant watching the full thing, in my opinion. Oh boy, let's see. Oh, that's exactly what I said. Perfect. 90% on the critic score, huh? Wow. That is really high. Very overrated, had little horror, and the jump scares came from a mile away. It had a few dodgy effects for its year, but I did like the story. Don't believe the hype when it says scariest film in years. Yeah, definitely not a horror film. I don't even know if I touched on that much. I think I did a little bit. But besides those like CGI jump scares, which are like obvious, I don't consider that horror. That's just like, I don't know, quick little shocks just in between. But overall, like, the feel of the film was very like upbeat or kind of like comical almost. So if you go into this thinking it's a horror film, kind of like I did, honestly, yeah, you will be let down for sure. It was great to see Raimi take a break from superhero flicks into this. A throwback to his slapstick horror roots, this is a much better polished movie compared to Evil Dead. With compelling characters and storytelling, but never losing sight of repulsive humor. I don't know about that one. Out of nowhere jump scares and plain madness. Yeah, I've mentioned the repulsive humor. I am not a fan. If people find that funny, I guess I can see it. I was just like looking away from the screen, man. Why do things gotta go in their mouths? Why do eyeballs and guts and blood have to shoot right into their mouths? Anywhere else is fine, but come on now. And a much more polished movie compared to Evil Dead. I would like to review Evil Dead on its own in the future. Preferably with Calan as well, because I want to get his thoughts on the series. But it really does just boil down into, do you enjoy Sam Raimi's direction and his style? It's this odd mix of humor and horror, and I think it just clashes too much for me. I don't really find it funny, and I don't really find it scary. I think that's the big problem. Now, knowing that he did superhero movies, because he did Spider-Man, right? I can 100% see that working. I've never watched them, but I think he would be an amazing at that. Because his style just fits that so much more. It really does kind of feel like a superhero movie at times. It's too goofy to be frightening, and too mean-spirited to be campy fun. Exactly. It's horror, it's comedy. Which is it? To me, it felt more like a comedy that just wasn't funny. Anorexia. Oh. Hold on a sec. I need to figure something out here. So I guess there's some tones of eating disorders in this movie. I never really put that together, but there's definitely signs of it throughout. Because they're saying, like, the reason everything goes into her mouth, like I was just complaining about, is because she's ashamed of being fat. She was a fat kid that's shown in a photograph earlier. And maybe that's why when she's at her boyfriend's parents' house, she has the cake in front of her, and suddenly she like can't bring herself to eat it. I mean, I can definitely see the themes of that, but I don't think that was the main purpose of the movie, because the ending, I don't think that could be interpreted at all as with any sort of eating disorder message. Okay, well, I like that angle. It gives it a little more volume overall, a little more depth. Like I said, though, then I kind of wish they really stuck with that message, and somehow the ending, she, like, starved to death or something. I don't know. She's been starving herself for 3 days, and that's the real demon that's killing her. That would have been kind of cool. I just find this one funny. 62% of you know good horror. The other 48% are clueless. That's 110%. That's really not that funny, but oh man, it's a little ironic. I would rather get dragged to hell than ever watch this again. There's a lot of half stars. Some people are very harsh on this. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I can see it. My expectations were changed once I found out this was a Sam Raimi film. I wonder if that has some impact on some of these people. That changed my expectations. Like, I wanted to like it more. Just because it's him. Like, he's so well known and people love his stuff. So I really wanted to try to understand it. In the end, I really just didn't at all. But it looked good. It's pleasant to look at, so that gives it some points for me. Low budget horror movie that delivers. It's not perfect, but it's still a decent film. So, from what I've seen scrolling through here, feel free to look through this yourselves if you're looking for some more positive ones. A lot of the 5-star ones are like, just like the ending was really good, and it's classic Sam Raimi. It reminded me of Evil Dead. So that kind of seems to be the consensus from what I've seen. Ending and Sam Raimi's style. So I can see where some people are coming from. I can see if you really enjoy it. It just really wasn't for me.